Hello, Year Sixers. Thursday, 25th of February today. We've nearly got through February. We'll be on the third month of the year before we know it. And hopefully with it, we'll get some lovely sunny weather. But we're going to start with our big read today. As ever, we're going to look at our inference questions. I say as ever, normally this would be a Wednesday thing, but obviously we're doing it on a Thursday this week. But we are going to be looking at inference questions and identifying inferences from evidence, and then also looking at various questions. Before we do that though, let's have a bit of a look at a starter. Now, as I've just mentioned, we'd normally do this on a Wednesday. Thursday would normally be your wider reading around a topic. So in lieu of that lesson not being here, what I'd like you to do is, for this starter, I'd like you to research the character of Chiron or Charon, depending on your pronunciation. He is an important figure in ancient Greece, and although we don't meet him in chapter 9, we are going to be meeting him in a chapter very soon. So what I'd like you to do is I'd just like you to spend maybe 10 minutes. I don't want you spending long on this because it's not the full lesson. So 5 to 10 minutes doing some research around the figure of Charon in ancient Greece. Who was he? What was he the god of? What did he do? What was his role? Was he a god? What was his role? What's his link maybe with Thanatos? Or at least what's his link with Thanatos's dad, Erebus? See if you can find that. But all I'm interested in really is find 5 facts, your choice, 5 really interesting facts. And then I'll sort of put those together as a bit of these are our facts about Charon for the chapter when we meet him. I'll put that together as a bit of a pack, a bit of a research pack that you will have done the research for. So that is your starter. Pause the video here whilst you're doing that. And when you've done that, come back to the video, click play, and we'll move on to looking at what we did yesterday and what we're going to do today. Speak to you when you've done that. But for now, go and get that done, written up in your books, and then come back and play the video when you're done. Speak to you again in a second. Okay, so a recap on yesterday's lessons. Yesterday we were looking at some retrieval questions. That's when the answer is to be found directly in the text. One of the questions you were asked if you did the green questions was, what is Elliot described as hiding behind? And we know that Elliot is described as hiding behind a pillar. It's just there. I've just highlighted it for you. I'm pointing at my screen as though you can see what I'm pointing at, but I've highlighted it there for you. So that was the answer to that one. And again, you're using that answer using the question in your answer. The orange question was, what strange thing is Virgo doing that distracts Pisces from speaking? And the thing that she's doing is moving her head strangely, and this distracts Pisces. And then the red question was, what 3 untrue things does Virgo say to the council? So the 3 untrue things that Virgo says to the council are, yes, of course, just some exercises, and of course I do. And this is unusual because Virgo's never lied before, and she finds that actually she can lie, and she seems to get away with it, which is why she's so intrigued about it. Okay, that was literal retrieval, but today we're looking at inference. Remember, we've done a lot of work around inference. We have looked at pictures and drawn inferences from those pictures. We've looked at inference sums where you have evidence plus evidence equals inference. You've filled those in where I've put in one bit of evidence, you've put in another bit, and I've given you the inference. You've done it where you've had to come up with the inference from the evidence I've provided you. And we've done it where you've had to fill in all sections yourself. Just before half term, you then did that all yourself. You looked at answering questions using those inference skills. We're still doing that today. We've got to that stage now, and we'll try and stick with it. We'll throw back to doing those inference sums occasionally because they're useful, particularly when we're looking at more in detail inferences, and they're a good way of remembering the pattern. However, we are going to try and stick now with me giving you the question and you answering it correctly as per those inference skills. So what sort of questions are we looking at today then? Today, starting on page 99, we've gone back a little bit from yesterday. We're still looking at chapter 9, this time starting on page 99, where Virgo arrives at the Zodiac Council. So First one in green. How do we know that Pisces is angry at the beginning of this page? For orange, what 3 words show how shocked and appalled the Zodiac Council are at Virgo's news? I realise that sounds a little bit like a vocabulary question, and actually there is overlap. Inference isn't just purely inference. A lot of vocabulary questions are inference, asking you what words show certain feelings. Sometimes summarising is an inference skill. So there's lots of strands to the bow of inference. The red question, Virgo's naivety really begins to show through in this chapter. Give evidence to support this statement. So they're the first 3 that I'd like you to have a go at, please. The answer to that green one can be found in the very first paragraph. So when I say at the beginning of this page, I really mean the very beginning of this page. Choose which one you're doing, have a go at writing it down, pause the video whilst you're doing that. When you've done it, start the video up again, and I'll show you some model answers to these questions. So you've got a really clear idea of what the expectation is. You'll see exactly what sort of answers I'll be looking for and exactly the sort of detail I would be expecting in those answers. For now though, pause the screen, have a go at those questions, start it up when you're done. I'll speak to you in a second. Okay. So, question 1. How do we know that Pisces is angry at the beginning of the chapter? Or the beginning of the page, should I say. And again, you use the question in your answer. And you have to look for somewhere, some way that you can tell Pisces is angry. So I've put, we know that Pisces is angry because he, and I've got a quote in. It should have a comma after that word he, actually. I made a grammatical error there. We all make mistakes, don't we? So it should say, because he, comma, then inverted commas, shrieked over the commotion. If someone's shrieking over the noise, that's a sure sign of one of two things. They're either scared or they're angry. There's another word that comes up later, the word outrage as well, which we could have used if we'd wanted to. The orange question, this is where we will need that word outrage, because it wants 3 words this time that show how appalled the Zodiac Council are. I think there's 4 potential words, so you just need to choose 3 of them. I've gone with these 3. The 3 words that show how shocked the Zodiac Council are commotion, erupted, and outrage. They're my 3. But you could have gone with shrieked as well. So you might not have put commotion, you might have put shrieked. They all fall in the first paragraph as well. So right at the beginning, you've got those 3 words that show that the Zodiac Council are shocked and appalled at Virgo's news. And the third one, Virgo's naivety really begins to show through in this chapter. Give evidence to support this statement. Slightly longer, I actually think you could have been even more detailed than my answer, but with this only being the first one, potentially not needing quite as much detail. So I've put, Virgo shows how naive she is in this chapter by making lots of excuses. So that's one piece of evidence. I've not quoted directly for that piece of evidence though. I have then gone on to be more direct and quote straight from the text for my second point. Second point, and then admitting to herself that, and here's my quote, and I've remembered the comma this time, that she was finding it difficult to make herself sound completely right. So that's my quote. She's normally convinced that she's always right. She's struggling to even think she's right this time. That shows that she's really quite naive in this situation. Okay, that's what I'm expecting for these questions. There are 6 inference questions today in all, and you just need to pause the screen on each page. You need to check what page the answers are in. I've put the page on the screen. Sometimes I've also put boxes, coloured boxes, depending on the question, around the exact section to look for. So make sure you use that if I've done that. Pause the screen each time, choose whether you're doing green, orange or red, and have a go at answering those questions, please. When you've done that, take a picture and send those in to me, and I'll be able to give you some feedback on those. But for now though, and for this lesson, that's everything from me. I'll continue the video and you'll continue seeing the questions, but I will have gone and I'm not going to speak to you anymore until that is, we get to the English video later. So I'll speak to you in the English video after this, but for this video, that's everything from me. Goodbye.